Good morning. Rise and shine, my friends. Today is Monday, June 10th, and this is Wake Up with KERA News. I'm Katherine Hobbs. Thank you so much for starting your morning with me. Highs this week will fluctuate between the high 80s and low 90s with rain sprinkled in, and today you can expect afternoon showers with a high of 86 degrees. Well, I hope you all had a lovely weekend. Mine was spent largely resting and cuddling my dog, which is a pretty darn good way to spend a weekend if you ask me. There's a ton going on across North Texas, so without further ado, let's get you the news you need to start your week. The Plano School Board called a special meeting for tonight to decide the fate of 4 schools in the district. A committee recently recommended closing 2 elementary and 2 middle schools because of declining enrollment and rundown facilities. The school board appointed a committee last year of more than 70 parents, staff, city employees, and other community members to evaluate campuses for potential closure based on the quality of facilities, the building capacities, and the district's declining enrollment. Depending on the school board's decision, the 4 campuses would close during the 2025 to 2026 school year. Well, we are saying goodbye to a KERA colleague today. Jerome Weeks, KERA's senior arts producer and reporter, is retiring after 36 years covering the arts. KERA's Justin Martin sat down with Jerome to discuss some of the changes he's witnessed to the local art scene.
So, Jerome, you had 20 years at the Dallas Morning News covering theater and books, and now 16 years here at KERA covering all of the arts in North Texas. So the first question has to be, over that time, what has changed here, good or bad?
Okay, 2 things, one good, one bad, and I'll start with the bad. One factor that the North Texas art scene is always going to struggle with is sprawl. I was thinking about this the other day because I was driving through Deep Ellum, and it's the opposite of sprawl. It's a place of nightclubs and bars and restaurants all together. It's always been a kind of music center. Back in the 80s and 90s, it also had a substantial number of ambitious, young, innovative theater companies. The Undermain Theater, which is still there, the Deep Ellum Theater Garage, Theater Commerce, the Pegasus Theater. And that collection of theaters, nightclubs, galleries, that is very rare in North Texas. And I didn't fully appreciate that at the time. I didn't realize I would never see that again because we are so spread out. We have this image of the solo genius artist, but there's a reason that the Impressionists and the Cubists, all of these artists formed groups. They shared their galleries, their agents, and their breakthroughs. And that's the kind of thing that is very difficult to do here because Dallas-Fort Worth is more than 9,000 square miles. In comparison, Greater London, 600 square miles. It's difficult to generate the kind of collective action and cross-support among any of the arts, particularly when the developers are at your back and you have to find a new place to move. On the other hand, one of the good things that's happened has been the return of independent bookstores. When I was the book critic at the Dallas Morning News, I was writing about their death all the time because of Amazon and the book chains. But as the book chains have pulled back, they opened up markets. The best known of these new independents, of course, is Wild Detectives in Oak Cliff, but there's also Who's Books, Interrobang Books, Pan-African Connection, Monkey and Dog Books in Fort Worth, Deep Vellum, and this is Katie Lemieux, who is co-owner of one of the newer ones, Talking Animals Bookstore in Grapevine.
Mostly, I wanted a place that didn't exist for me when I was a young mom. I wanted people to come in and feel cozy. So I was like, I'm just going to do this. I will figure it out later.
You know, looking back, you have any favorite topics, favorite artists, shows, the things that you naturally gravitated to?
The great difference between print journalism on the arts and radio journalism on the arts is music. And music is tremendous. It just pops out of the radio at you. And so you'll be hearing about war and political arguments and climate disasters, and then you suddenly hear something like this. That's the Reverend K.M. Williams playing slide on a cigar box guitar. That fun with audio is also true of theater, live theater. Adrian Hall, when he was artistic director of the Dallas Theater Center, Adrian sadly passed just last year, but when he was in charge in the 80s, he was known for these epic productions, particularly his 1986 adaptation of Robert Penn Warren's famous novel, All the King's Men. And Adrian brought in Randy Newman's music, here sung by Candy Buckley.
River rose all day, the river rose all night. 6 feet of water in the streets of Evangeline, Louisiana.
I'm really honestly curious. What about the discoveries you've made? Like, does anything stand out for you?
The pleasures of watching artists develop, notably our local author, Ben Fountain. He became a nationwide bestseller with Billy Lynn's Long Halftime Walk, which was adapted into a movie. His new novel, Devil Makes Three, is huge, a novel about Haiti and American involvement there. It is so much more ambitious than anything he's done before, and that was wonderful to follow. Or here is Cedric Neal, who was a young guy from Oak Cliff who attended Booker T. Washington, moved to New York and then to London, and last year he was in a hit production of Guys and Dolls, the musical.
For the people all said, sit down, you're rocking the boat. People all said, sit down, you're rocking the boat. And the devil will drag you under by the sharp lapel of your checkered coat. Sit down, sit down, sit down, sit down, sit down.
One thing that I'm very proud of was a limited series podcast called Gunplay that Hadi Mawagdi and I developed. It was his idea to do a podcast on Cry Havoc Theater with director Mara Richards-Bim. Cry Havoc folded up shop recently, but the idea behind that theater company was finding teenage actors to create their own show on topics of interest to them. And the one they created was a play called Babel. And it was about gun rights and gun violence. And what made this particularly powerful was the fact that these were teenagers who were investigating issues like adolescent suicide, but also their own experience with active shooter drills. This is Cara Lawson, who was a senior at Booker T. Washington at the time.
There's no way at this point to go into all the homes across America and take those guns out. We're way too far in. But is that the kind of power that a civilian should wield?
What about the big ticket items? Like, say, what kind of change with the Arts District?
Well, now we get into it. The Dallas Arts District is just a microcosm of the growth and expansion that's happened. After the Dallas Museum of Art and the Meyerson Symphony Center, who knew that within 25 years we would have the Winspear Opera House, the Wiley Theater, the Nasher Sculpture Center, the Perot? Meanwhile, the same thing was going on in Fort Worth. The Modern Art Museum opened. The Kimball Art Museum had a major expansion. The Eamon Carter Museum had a major upgrade. Bass Hall opened downtown. And then you start adding the big music venues. American Airlines Center, Dickies Arena, the Toyota Music Factory.
So what has all that brought us, Jerome?
Well, they've brought us a lot of art, theater, and music, obviously. But there's also been new groups establishing themselves in the past 15, 20 years. And with that, a long overdue uptick in diversity to the longstanding groups Teatro Dallas, Cara Mia, Jubilee Theater. We now have Bishop Arts Center, Soul Rep Theater, and the Latino Cultural Center. But what is plain from that decades-long boom in cultural construction is that whatever difficulties the arts face here, and I don't mean to minimize them, there is a tremendous amount of energy and wealth in North Texas. And we know there are a lot of new audience members arriving all the time. That kind of ferment is a characteristic of all great cultural centers. For better and worse, they are not static. They are not immobile. And neither is North Texas.
You know what, Jerome? It has been a pleasure learning about the arts with you over the years. I think everyone here at KERA hopes you have a fantastic retirement, and we appreciate everything you've done.
Thank you very much, Justin. I've always liked these conversations, too.
That was KERA's Jerome Weeks with Justin Martin. Well, the Mavericks have lost Game 2 of the NBA Finals to Boston, 105-98. Game 3 is scheduled for Wednesday night, and the series moves on down to Dallas. When Kyne Santos was a student at the University of Waterloo, she was living a Hannah Montana-esque double life. By day, she did math equations, and by night, she was slaying on stage as a drag queen. She's risen to fame via her TikTok account, where she works as a science communicator, making videos about mathematics and science, along with the history of drag peppered in. Now she has a book out called Math and Drag, where she explores the creative and beautiful connections between math and drag performance. Her message: hard sciences can be so much fun. Thank you so much for starting your day with me. I'm so glad you take a few minutes to listen each morning. Be sure to subscribe to the Wake Up with KERA newsletter, also by yours truly at KERAnews.org, and go ahead and give us a follow on Instagram and Threads at KERATX. I'm Katherine Hobbs. We'll chat again tomorrow.